I've covered a lot of speedrun categories in Super Mario Bros. I just did a breakdown of the Warpless world record. I've talked about the All-Stars version, the Game Boy version. I've talked about minus world ending. And, of course, I've covered the any percent category about a dozen times. Now, let's look at the sequel, Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, aka The Lost Levels. The number of categories I've covered for this game is 1. And it's any percent with Luigi. This is crazy because I am obsessed with this game. I've been playing it most days for the past 5 years. And this game has a ton of speedrun categories. So yeah, I have a lot to share with you about this game. And today, I hope to show you why I love speedrunning it so much. It's very similar to the first game with the same precise tricks and glitches you know and love. And so much more. Guys, there are so many tricks which would be possible in Super Mario Bros., but the situation just never comes up in any of the levels. But Mario 2J gives new opportunities for these tricks to have a place in speedruns, and it has some brand new tricks of its own. So yeah, stick around and you'll see exactly what I mean. This video is possible thanks to today's sponsor, Displate. Displates are art for your wall with a few key components that make them stand out. They're metal posters, which makes them look awesome, and super easy to mount. No drilling or nailing holes in your wall, you just stick up the magnets that they come with, and that's all it takes. My favorite thing about Displates is the variety of art they have, from various TV shows, video games, or whatever you're into. There's an appropriate category for every room in the house, or for whatever you're passionate about. And now, anyone can have a Displate of their own custom design, like this one I made of the classic speedrun timer. Valentine's Day is also right around the corner, so get you or your loved one a special custom Displate to celebrate. In honor of Valentine's Day, Displate is offering 27% off of 1 or 2 Displates and 35% off of 3 or more. So, to get a Displate of whatever or whoever you love, click the link in the description or use code COSMIC at checkout. Alright, so basically, this video is my chance to share a ton of stuff about this game with you, which otherwise just wouldn't see the light of day. This game has a lot of different speedrun categories. Here's a quick rundown of why that is. In the game, there's the typical 8 worlds with 4 levels each, just like SMB1. But then, there's also 5 bonus worlds. The first bonus world you get to play if you beat the game warpless. If you beat World 8 without using any warps along the way, then after saving Peach, you'll be taken to World 9. It's a bizarre place, which the game describes as Fantasy World. Let's try Fantasy World with one game. In other words, let's play World 9 with only 1 life. Regardless of how many lives you had before, you'll always start World 9 with 1 life. Also, after you beat 9-4, you just go back to 9-1 again. You can play World 9 forever until you game over, at which point you get this message. Alright, so that's the first bonus world, but there are 4 more. And these ones, the game's manual tells us how to get there. After rescuing Princess Peach once, a star mark will appear on the title screen. When you've gathered 8 star marks, you can play slightly different courses. While holding the A button, press the start button. So yeah, each time you beat the game, you get a star on the title screen, and once you have 8, you will permanently unlock what we call the letter worlds. Worlds A, B, C, and D. And at the end of World D, you save Peach again and have a second ending to the game. All of this is just to explain why there are so many categories in this game. Because there's the main 8 worlds, plus this little second quest you can get to from the title screen. So that led to us creating the following categories. Beating 8-4 with warps, beating 8-4 without warps. Then there's also starting in World A and beating D4 with warps, and doing the same thing but without warps. And finally, there's beating both 8-4 and D4 with warps, aka both endings, and beating both 8-4 and D4 without warps, aka all stages. I hope that made sense. So yeah, you can probably see why there's so much stuff to talk about in this game, and also why a lot of it inevitably doesn't get talked about. you're just not likely to get a full breakdown of the latest A to D Warpless record, or both endings record, or whatever. But between all these categories and the 52 levels in this game, there are so many cool tricks and strategies. So, rather than do a hyper deep dive into one category today, we're going to be taking a broader look at the game as a whole, and I'll just sort of rapid fire talk about different cool tricks. Some of this stuff I have covered previously, or explained more in depth in past videos, so if you see something like this in the corner, that means there's a video you can go watch to hear additional details about that topic. Alright, with all of that prefaced and out of the way, let's really get into it. As I already mentioned, this game has a lot of situations to do things that just don't come up in SMB1. Here is a perfect example to start with, the frame perfect spring jump. Normally, you obviously bounce up and down on springs, and if you press A when the spring is compressed, it'll launch you upward. But if you press A on the last frame before Mario becomes airborne, he does a regular jump instead of the spring jump. So yeah, this is a thing that exists in Super Mario Bros., but there's not really a reason to do it anywhere. It doesn't help in any way in this game. In 2J, however, we have just the situation for it. In this spot, at the end of level D2. Here, let's think. What would be the fastest way through this section? Well, if we jump at the very edge of the spring, we can make it all the way to the flagpole. But grabbing the bottom of the flagpole is actually slower than the top, because Mario accelerates slower on his way to the castle. So let's try getting the top of the pole then. Well, now we overshoot this block, unless we slow down to land on it. But slowing down to land on it means we're gonna reach the pole later. We do get the top, which does end up saving a few frames over the last approach, but this is still not the best way. The best way is with the frame perfect spring jump. Getting this regular jump off the spring just perfectly makes it up onto the block. No slowdown required, top of the flagpole, it's exactly what we're looking for. It does look frankly bizarre, but also kinda awesome. And it saves a frame rule, with 0 frames to spare. Alright, so that's a taste of the kind of cool situations that come up in this game. Now, we're going to go through 4 different categories of things that make this speedrun awesome. And just to be clear here, none of this is meant to hate on SMB1 speedruns. It's just love for 2J, and I'm showing you things which, if you enjoy SMB1 runs, you should enjoy these a lot as well. So, here are the 4 categories. First, stuff that is already in Super Mario Bros. 1 speedruns, but 2J adds additional opportunities for it. Second, stuff that's possible in SMB1, but the situations for it never come up. Third, completely new tricks, which didn't exist in SMB1 at all. And fourth, well, we'll keep this one a mystery for now. Alright, let's jump into number 1. Here are things which already exist in SMB1 speedruns, but we see new situations for them in 2J. And we'll start with wall jumps. In SMB1, wall jump just feels like such an iconic trick, right? Like it's literally my profile picture. But this is really the main place we see it used. Other than that, I guess it's used in this one particular 4-2 strategy, and in some other really niche categories. In 2J, we're blessed with a few more places to use it. The both ending speedrun, for example, has 3 wall jumps in one run. Here in 1-2, here in A1, and here in A2. Another fun one is in the Warp Zone room of 1-2 as Luigi. And by far the coolest one is here in 2-2. I love that you wall jump out of the pit. The regular way past here is to reveal these hidden blocks to get up and over. Which, by the way, if you don't go for the wall jump, the speedrun strat to climb the blocks looks pretty cool on its own too. Alright, the next trick in this category to go over is crouch swimming. If you start swimming out of a crouch, Mario will retain his crouching hitbox. In runs where you're Big Mario, this is very useful in 8-4 to get past the fire bars. But that's it. You can do it in the other water levels, but it doesn't save time anywhere. Plus, you can't shoot fireballs while crouching, so there is a drawback to it. Now, in 2J, crouch swimming is very useful. The water stages have much tighter passages, so the smaller hitbox lets you get through a lot more smoothly. Things can get really intricate here with certain enemy patterns too, like you can start crouch swimming, then cancel it to get access to fireballs back and clear out an enemy that's in your way. Then start crouch swimming again, cancel it again later. The water levels can be pretty intense in this game. Another cool aspect of this is there's more than just crouch swimming. There's also crouch falling, and technically crouch climbing, although that one isn't used anywhere. But yeah, crouch falling is where you crouch before falling off a ledge to keep the crouching hitbox. This doesn't really come up in SMB1. I guess it's slightly relevant in a couple spots, like here in 4.4 or here in 5.2. But yeah, in 2J, there are several cool examples of it. Some of the castle stages have shafts like these that you have to fall down. Mario accelerates faster backwards than forwards, so you want to turn around as you fall off. But you also want to crouch, so Mario will start moving past the wall at the bottom as soon as possible. So the best way through here is to do this turnaround crouch motion. Or you also have this spot in 4.4, where it's actually best to let this platform drop a bit, and then run and crouch fall off the platform. You can see Mario's head is just going right through the wall. The level B4 also has a great example of crouch falling. Right here, you crouch just before running off the ledge, so you can squeeze through this gap without bonking. I love that 2J really makes you bring out the full tool belt of movement options. Speaking of which, that's the next thing on the list, just general good movement. In SMB1, you can run forward without stopping like 99% of the time. Again, this spot in 4.4 is one of the few tiny exceptions. But in 2J, we get so much more complex areas. Like here in 7.1, for instance, we have some tight fireballs to clear the enemies out of the way, and then either a crouch jump through here with really good control over your momentum, or backwards jumping up here and then crouch falling off the pipe to avoid the pipe in the plant. And then there's the castle stages, which all have some wild layouts. 1.4 has these pillars, which are so hard to navigate optimally. 6.4, well, you're up and down and all over the place. A4 has this double frame perfect jump to make it onto this pillar and avoid the potaboos. There's plenty of examples, but the ultimate one is 7.4. You have to weave around firebars throughout the level. And this section here requires excellent control of Mario's momentum and overall just looks really satisfying. Alright, let's move on to the next item on our list. Let's talk about underwater flagpole glitches. This is a thing in SMB1, technically in the minus world ending category. Being underwater lets you grab the flag really low and trigger flagpole glitches. This includes full flagpole glitch, which skips the entire walk, or swim, to the castle. In 2J, we get a few more opportunities to do this. World 9, the bizarre fantasy world I mentioned earlier, has 3 underwater levels where you can do this glitch. Doing all 3 of these together saves about 7 seconds. And a funny detail about underwater flagpole glitches is that on the All-Stars version, this soft locks the game. Well, actually, any full flagpole glitch will cause a soft lock, because the game is waiting for Mario to reach the castle and do his victory pose before starting the timer countdown. So yeah, you can't save time with this on the All-Stars version, but you can still do regular flagpole glitch, which saves 0.7 in each of these water stages. That adds up to a couple seconds, which is a good chunk, so it's done in the world record. Just don't go too late and soft lock on world record pace.
Yeah, I was honestly kind of afraid of soft locking.
Hey, while we're talking about All-Stars, let me just mention some unique things about it. This version has a whole host of differences and unique strategies. When I talked about all the different categories earlier, I actually left out half of them. There are 5 more on the All-Stars version, including one where you use the added save and quit feature to skip some levels and reach D4 faster. This version also has some levels where the layout has been changed slightly. And a lot more enemies spawn throughout because the Super Nintendo can handle more sprites on screen. But okay, I'll be honest, the main reason I wanted to talk about the All-Stars version is because of one specific strategy in 8.3. In the original, you have this castle wall in the background, and they've sneakily hidden some solid blocks in there. There's hidden power-ups, a vine to climb, and at the end, you have to use some of these hidden blocks to jump off of. Now, on the All-Stars version, things work a little differently. There's no castle wall background, just clouds. So instead of all of the blocks being hidden within the background, they made them all invisible instead. Which means, at the end, you can't just jump straight off of them. You have to reveal them first, then jump up onto them. Doing that quickly usually looks something like this. You need running speed in order to jump high enough, so you have to build up some speed before jumping up. Now, there is a faster way you could jump up here. If you jump into the corner of a block, it'll kill all of your speed instantly. And then, if you jump on the first frame you land, you'll still have running speed jump physics. We can use this in 8.3 to climb faster and die to the poison mushroom that comes out. Okay, here's the really cool part. There's a hidden star a bit earlier in the level, and if you grab it quickly, you can use it to power through the poison mushroom. This hasn't been done in a record run yet, but this is what the task does. And I think it is so cool that a situation like this exists at all, and that it's literally the optimal way through here. Alright, anyway, back to our category we're talking about. The last thing to mention here is enemy manipulation. There is so much enemy manipulation in this game. It comes in two forms, doing stuff within the level to affect how later enemies spawn in. There's a lot of stuff you can do to affect things like fire bars, Paracoopas, Hammer Bros, and more. And then the other form this takes is just routing out the exact moment you arrive on each stage to control the randomness and get favorable enemy patterns. Again, there's a ton of this going on in this game, and it can get pretty complex. I really want to make a video with a full breakdown of the Warpless category, which will include talking through the finer details of this. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Alright, that's the end of the first category. Moving on to the second. Here's things that would be possible in SMB1 if the situation ever came up. The frame perfect spring jump we talked about earlier is an example of this. Another example is flag despawn. Despawning the flag on the flagpole is something you can do in SMB1, but never in a way that saves time. Though it does let you score fewer points in a minimum score run. In 2J, you can do at least 3 flag despawns, which save time. The basic rundown of how it works is you need enough enemies or objects near the flagpole, so the star flag has nowhere else to load in, and it actually overwrites the flagpole flag. Our first example of this we'll look at is in 2.1. It's actually pretty simple to get enough enemies near the end here. The next one is in A1, which is a very complex sequence of manipulating which enemies spawn throughout the whole level. And finally, the last one is in A3. This one is purely about getting enough jumping Cheep Cheeps near the end, which is hard to make happen consistently, but it could also randomly happen to anyone. Alright, the next trick to talk about in this category is power-up jumps. After collecting a power-up, Mario is actually in a grounded state for 1 frame. If you're not holding the A button when you get a power-up, you can start holding it during the animation, and he'll jump out of it. This is a fun mid-air jump you can mess around with in SMB1, but it doesn't really come up in speedruns. It's useful in several spots in 2J, however. It can help grab the 1-1 mushroom fast, this mushroom in 1-2, a fire flower in 1-3, the fire flower in 1-4, it can help you move quickly after grabbing a fire flower in 4-1, and also after getting a fire flower in 4-2, as well as this strategy when grabbing the fire flower in A4. Now you're obviously not getting all of these power-ups in the same run, but these are all relevant depending on what category you're playing and which strategies you're going for. But yeah, there's just a lot of interesting stuff when grabbing power-ups in general in this game. The ultimate power-up jump is here to get into the floor in 1-1, which lets you do a full flagpole glitch at the end. And this is used in the Luigi TAS. Man, speaking of Luigi, that's going to bring us to our next category, things which are brand new in this game. See, SMB1 is very similar to 2J. It's mostly just the same game with new levels. But there are some brand new things, one of which is a brand new character to play as. Well, of course you can play as Luigi in SMB1 as player 2, but now he's actually different and usable in speedruns since you can select him from the title screen. Alright guys, you're gonna love this. I keep mentioning how many categories there are for this game, and there's actually twice as many as I've mentioned so far, because every category has a Luigi variant. And this is well warranted. Luigi handles very differently. He of course has his iconic super high jumps, and that does allow him to make some crazy jumps. But the problem is Luigi's other new trait. His acceleration is terrible. Most people will notice this in terms of slowing down. He's very slippery, but it also means he takes a while to get up to speed, so he loses time all over the place from that. It's actually not quite as bad on the All-Stars version. They fixed his acceleration here. But yeah, anyway, Luigi is his own interesting, separate world of 2J speedrunning, which I haven't personally participated much in, but he can certainly get up to some pretty interesting shenanigans. Okay, let's go over a couple other things that are new in 2J. One is super jumps. I mean, technically these are in SMB1, but they're much less explosive. Super jumps are when you bounce off of an enemy while moving upward. It doesn't work with every type of enemy, but when it does, you can get a pretty sizable bounce. 2J has tweaked enemy bounce physics and you bounce quite a bit higher, and this makes super jumps really exaggerated. This makes for some really cool strategies, like here in 5-1. This one just looks so satisfying. And super jumps are useful in a few other places too, like 4-3, 5-3, B3, and even 1-1, to give you some examples. Moving on, another new thing in this game is upside down pipes. In later games, you can enter these type of pipes upward, but that's not a thing in this game. You can, however, clip inside and go down them, which leads to some wrong warp glitches. Sometimes this is used to reach a nearby entrance faster, like in 5-2, instead of climbing this vine to get to the warp zone, you can clip in this pipe instead. But there's also another form of wrong warp from these, where they can make you appear somewhere later on in a level. In the All Stages run, there are no less than 3 of these which save time. One at the end of 5-2 to save a little bit, one here in 8-1 to save a few seconds, and then this warp in C1 is particularly crazy. Just straight to the flagpole. Alright, that does it for this category. That's 3 categories we've talked about so far. Now to reveal category number 4. Wall clips. I had to save this for the end as its own category because there's just so much here. This whole pattern is going to repeat because there are wall clips which fit into all of the above categories. We'll talk about wall clips which exist in SMB1, but we get a lot more of them in 2J. I'll share wall clips which could exist by the rules of SMB1, but the situation for it never comes up. And we'll go over wall clips which only exist within the brand new rules of 2J. Alright, so let's go through some notable wall clips that are in SMB1. There's the classics like 1-2, 4-2, you've got 4-4 in Warpless, there's -3 in Minus World Ending, and then, well, that's pretty much it actually. It's actually kind of rare for a wall clip to save time in this game, in terms of getting through a level layout faster. Most of the time-saving clips in this game are to make flagpole glitches happen. They don't really get you places faster, they're just used as part of the process for a separate glitch. Well, in 2J, it's another story. Time-saving wall clips are all over the place. Similar to the clip in 1-2 through the pipe to get to the warp zone faster, there's this clip in A2 to get to the warp zone faster. Similar to the clip in -3, there's this clip in B4. Similar to the clip in 4-2, there's this clip in 1-2 and 4-4, and an alternative way to get to the A2 warp zone. And similar to the clip in 4-4 as Big Mario, there's this clip in 1-2, and 2-4, and 7-4, and 7-4, and 7-4, and 7-4, and also in B4 for categories where you're Big Mario. So yeah, as you can see, that's plenty of clips already, but those are just the clips that are similar to what's already in SMB1. There are other types of clips which come up nowhere in SMB1. For example, watch this. This one is so fun. We call this the magic trick. Shoutouts to Darbian for naming it that. But yeah, he just goes right through there, man. How does this work? Allow me to reveal the secret to this magic trick. It works because there's an invisible block next to the pipe. You know how on all these other wall clips, once Mario gets in the wall, he can just keep running inside of it? This is intended behavior for situations like this in 1-2 of SMB1, or 3-4 of 2J. You don't want Big Mario to just get stuck. The game ignores wall collision if the back of Mario's head is touching a wall. In this case, with the invisible block, you're basically able to get Mario overlapping with a wall for free. You can overlap with where it is, and this counts as being inside a wall. Now wall collision is ignored, and you can go straight into the pipe. There's not really a situation like this in SMB1, other than sort of with a couple of the invisible 1-ups. But 2J has this spot in 6-1, as well as this spot in 8-4. You have to be Big Mario for this one in order to be overlapping with the invisible block. But yeah, this clip is actually really nice because you can run under this guy, who we call Bruce, and not have to deal with his random patterns. Alright, on to the next one. Yet another type of wall clip that doesn't really come up in SMB1 is clipping by being near the top of the screen. If Mario's head is up in the HUD area, it starts ignoring collision for some reason I don't actually know. It happens near the bottom of the screen too. This sounds crazy, but it's true. And you have probably actually seen this type of clip before. It's the original Nintendo Power method of getting to the minus world. But it's harder than other methods of clipping here, and yeah, just not useful in a speedrun anywhere. In 2J, there are a few places for it. A couple of them aren't super necessary, like you can do it here in 8-1 through this pipe, but it's not any faster than other options. I often like to do it after getting the mushroom here. This type of clip is genuinely good in level B2 though. It helps you get through this area faster in categories where you're Big Mario. It also helps you move through here at a consistent speed, which helps with knowing what enemy patterns you'll get for the rest of the level. B2 is the most random level in the game, so that's really nice. Also, I love the fact that this spot for it is underwater. An underwater clip that actually saves time is so cool to me. And actually, that's not even the only one of those in this game. Similar to how SMB1's 8-4 has a water section, 2J's 8-4 also has a water section. It has this hallway with a fire bar at the end. Normally, you have to wait a bit for this fire bar to rotate in order to get past. But if you clip into this corner, you can get Mario scrolled forward on the screen and get past the fire bar before it blocks your path. Alright, so those were the types of wall clips which would be possible in SMB1 if the situation called for it. But there's another type of wall clip which is exclusive to 2J because of something they added in: wind. There's wind on some stages, which you'll notice alternates between weak wind and strong wind. If you stand next to a wall and walk very slowly to the left, the wind can push you into the wall. This is useful since it's a rare opportunity to pretty easily clip into the floor. Most floor clips are extremely hard, but very valuable since they make full flagpole glitches possible. With the wind in this game, you can get an easy clip into the floor in some spots, a perfect example being D1. The TAS also does this in 6-1, but that one comes with some extra complications. This is also useful for this very obscure category called All-Stars All-Stars, where the goal is to collect all the stars on the All-Stars version of the game. Here in 8-2, normally you have to wait for the star to run out, so you can bounce on the Koopa and activate the vine. But with a wind floor clip, you can get to the right side of the screen and activate the vine while still keeping the star block on screen. Very crucial tech for all the fans of All-Stars All-Stars out there. Well, anyway, that's the end of my list of wall clips for today. But there's actually something else you can clip through: fire bars. These really long fire bars specifically. SMB1 only has one of these really long fire bars, but they show up more often in 2J. And sometimes they're right in your way. Can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it. This basically works because you're on one side of the fire bar on one frame and on the other side of it on the next frame. It's really precise, but doable in a few spots. This one here saves close to 2 seconds at the start of 6-4. And this one in D4 also saves about 2 seconds. The world record in 5 different categories features a fire bar skip at this point. Speaking of long fire bars, they're actually the key to a huge trick in this game. Something that was discovered just in the past year. Something that is yet another trick that would be possible in SMB1 if the situation ever came up. And that thing is Ace. What is Ace? It's kind of the biggest trick possible in a game. Like, the biggest thing you can do in any game. Ace is possible in 2J, but the situation that makes it possible never comes up in SMB1. Or does it? Guys, thanks to the brilliance of 3Creepio, Ace is actually very close to happening in SMB1. And that's what I'm going to cover next. For a full breakdown of Ace in 2J and how it might be possible in SMB1, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.